What's up guys, it's Bo here again, and welcome to another Bo Junior vlog. In this entry I want to talk about, this is the second part essentially of the video that I made about language. And how, now we find ourselves, well, language, just to, quickly recap, language was a system that we made. And of course when I say language I'm talking about spoken language. That was meant to facilitate, the communication of our experiences to one another, right? And indeed to record that experience down, right? And where once it was the servant to our consciousness, to our experience, we now find ourselves in an age where, it has actually become the thing that it has become the thing that basically dominates over us, right? Where like, we've become so kind of, we've become so fixated on meanings, particularly like, the definitions of words, the definitions of opinions, an example of this is if you go on like any YouTube video of like, like a song or like a game or like a movie trailer or something, and you will see people going off on each other. But like just because like something says something that could be interpreted like poorly, and all of these like fucking all of these like trivial fights that people get into based on like what exactly did you mean by that, you said that this was bad, that I don't like you, that is testimony to how we have become attached. Or rather, we have become subservient to our verbal language, right? Where it was once our servant, right? And so, the perspective that I wanted to provide in this video, in continuation, in kind of, in extension to what I talked about in that entry, is the idea that you are never wrong, right? So, the progression from that video is to teach you how to detach yourself from the language that you use, right? And of course, language then feeding into the identity, the kind of identity, the way that you present yourself in the world based on how you're described, how you would describe yourself, right? And ultimately, to detach yourself from the way that you think about yourself, right? Because the way that you think about yourself, I made an entry about judgment, right? Which is obviously like related to this language thing. It's the same thing because both things, derive from our mental, logical, thinking, right? And so, like what we must learn to do to free ourselves from the tyranny of our, our own verbal language, which was once our servant, and the judgment that we place on ourselves and other people, ultimately our thinking minds, right? We must learn to detach our essence, our being, ourselves, from the thoughts that we have about ourselves and other people, right? And so, you are never wrong. I want you to start from that space of understanding that you are never wrong, right? Regardless of how you are seen, regardless of what people say, regardless of what comes out of your own mouth. Because hey, I fucking judge myself when I say things that I don't mean. And that happens a fucking lot, right? When I'm not accurate enough in my expression, I get pissed off at myself. Go figure, right? But despite what is said, despite any judgment that other people place on you, you're weak, you're not strong enough, you're not clever enough, you need to improve in this aspect, you're not doing this right, I don't like this opinion that you have, I don't like your argument on this. I don't like the fact that, I don't like the argument that you're using against me. Despite all of that, you are never wrong. right? Because the judgment is the judgment is a judgment. The judgment is an idea. The language that we use is symbolism, right? It just points to like a certain kind of like aspect of like of existence, right? And a lot of times it's an aspect that is based on our own perception of existence, right? But behind all of that, you've got to remember that you are never wrong. You are never wrong. No matter what happens, this goes beyond language. This goes beyond judgment. No matter what you do, right? No matter what is done to you, no matter what happens, you are never wrong, right? And you can feel that this is the start of some awesome self-love, right? Because, like, think about it. How often do we let judgment and words cause us to be upset and hurt? Let me tell you, often enough such that like you don't even like you're numb to most of it, because like you're so used to the fact that like I'm at the mercy of what I say, I'm at the mercy of what other people say, I'm at the mercy of how I see myself, I'm at the mercy of what the world tells me I should be like, and therefore like how much of a failure I am. It's so fucking common to be at the mercy of language, of thoughts, of judgments, that like it's ridiculous, right? But when you really think about it, it blows your mind, and you start to think, like when you get, well, you have to dig into meaning, really. So like aside from the kind of so like I teach two kind of main areas in my videos, right? I teach sensitivity, tapping into your sensitivity, your feelings, right? Sensation, energy, right? I teach that. I also teach about perspective, right? I teach about perspective. I teach about subjective morality. I teach about flexible identity, right? I did an entry that, you can go watch because I think it's really interesting, about my concept called the axes of perception, right? Where you have a vertical axis, which basically constitutes, or is constituted by, things, actions, words, symbols, right? Things, things that you can sense, things that you can conceptualize of, right? A thing, right? A car, an iPhone, a judgment like this person is ugly, the speech of that, or like the words of those words, a painting, a film, a name, a brand, right? I did an entry about brands, right? They are the things that we sense, the things that we grasp, the things that we take snapshots of with our thinking minds, right? And then there is another axis, which is the horizontal axis, which is the energetic axis, right? That is about meaning, right? That is about context, right? That is about identity. And identity from, in the sense of like, what does this mean? Is this good? Is this bad? It's morality. It's how we weigh something, right? Yes, there is this thing on the vertical axis. There is this movie, there is this idea, there is this person, there is this brand, but is it valuable or is it not valuable? What does it mean? Is it good or is it bad, right? That is the horizontal axis, right? The two axes are orthogonal, which means that like they are not fixed on each other, right? So anything can be good or bad, even if it is universally perceived as good or bad, right? It depends on what you're looking, like on the context, right? But everything can be good or bad, or valuable or not valuable, resourceful or not resourceful, right? And so, a part of our, are kind of, if you have an interest in in developing your perspective, right, then you will come across these things, right? But, and so, you start off with the accumulation of perspectives, right? You start off with, the exploration of many different kind of definitions and meanings. This person said this, this spiritual teacher said this guru said this, right? And so you accumulate loads and loads of different perspectives, right? And in so doing, you hit a point when you realize that even, because, and like, you start to see that the essential meaning behind what is said, or the way that something is articulated, is not necessarily contingent on the words themselves, right? And this is why I teach, and this is why I think that the axis of perception idea is so fucking amazing that I came up with, right? Humble brag much? It's not even a humble brag, right? But you realize that like symbolism is merely something that points towards an energetic state, or like a fundamental, like intuitive meaning that is ultimately, in its essence, is not like, it doesn't need any words to be there. Like the words are there to point towards those things, and it does help, right, to have symbols that you place so that you can like access those truths, those principles, those meanings easily, right? But the key discovery that you will make is that any form of symbolism is arbitrary. That is the thing. That is the key discovery that you will make, right? And so, words, no matter how kind of like how amazing and descriptive they are, language, no matter how descriptive language is, it is arbitrary. It just so happens that language was created and we all reached a consensus to use that language, collectively, right? But and the key kind of revelation that comes from this discovery is that you don't have to place so much emphasis on the symbolism, right? You don't have to place so much emphasis on the exact words, right? And you don't have to get so hung up, as I explained in the first part of this entry, the first part of the language these two language entries, is you don't have to be so attached to the differences in the symbolism that people use, right? And if you and similarly, you'll come to discover that people a lot of the times are actually pointing towards the same thing. They're actually pointing towards the same meaning, the same truth. Perhaps they're pointing towards different sides of it, different sides of the same coin, right? And they're using different words, but instead of being hung up over the words and feeling and having to take these sides, I don't like the way that you I don't like that word that you use. I don't like the word that you use, right? Instead of getting hung up on this thing, I want to say trivial, but it goes beyond that. It's not necessary. If you want to kind of make communication more effective, then don't be caught up, over these these different symbols that people use to describe the same thing, right? And so, of course, I go back to the theme of this video, which is you are never wrong. If symbolism is merely, a signpost, language being a form of symbolism, towards essential meanings that really cannot be articulated, non-arbitrarily, right? Because they are so dynamic and fluid and complex and ineffable. So it's language will only ever skim the surface of any of these truths, right? So If that is the case, and any kind of form of judgment, similarly, that is aimed towards you, is merely a temporary kind of signpost towards perhaps a truth, but it's a truth that will always change because we live in an energetic existence, and our logic is like a static snapshot process, right? We don't have to take things so personally, Does the fact, like this example, does the fact that I said we don't have to take this so personally affect you? It doesn't have to. You're not wrong. Even if the thing that I am saying is in direct contradiction to what you think, right now, and you feel that at some level, I have some kind of an insight on this, and you feel ashamed, you don't have to be. Don't be ashamed. You're not wrong. You're never wrong. We are never wrong. Don't beat yourself up over language, over symbolism, right? You are an infinite creative being. You are an expression of source, of God, of this divinity that moves through everything in life. Don't kick yourself. Don't hurt yourself over the symbolism that was once meant to be, our servants. But is now, funnily, when you look at it with this open perspective, that you're never wrong, it's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting. You no longer feel that energetic kind of low vibration of fear and pain and gripping because you are wrong. It becomes an interesting thing, where you're not attached to the symbolism anymore. You know that nothing that is said or done or thought or remembered, can be is anything to do with you, is ever a direct, reflection of how you are in your entirety, right? And from that space, from that open space, from that spacious space, you start to see everything with this wonder and interest that doesn't carry with it the kind of undercurrent of pain and solemnity and seriousness, So cool. Was there anything else I wanted to tack on the end of that? Yeah, I mean, there could be some other things that I could talk about, but that's my essential message, realize that you are beyond that stuff, right? Again, doesn't mean that if you love that stuff, that I have insulted you, and then you should now kill yourself. That is what we're trying to move away from. It's not a logical thing, it's an emotional thing. It's based on how you feel about yourself, not what you think about yourself, right? And that is tricky for many of us who love thinking, not so great at feeling, right? I have, I extend my love to you, But yeah, I wanted to wrap with just, one more thing that might kind of cement this for you, which is when we say that something is wrong, when we use that word, when we use that symbol, it's a bit ambiguous. It kind of implies that it is incorrect in a logical sense, in a syntactical sense, right? But really, a lot of times what we mean by wrong, when we use that word wrong, is feel bad about. That is actually what we mean a lot of times. This is true for me. When I say that I am wrong or that something is wrong, it means feel bad about. Think about that. It's really profound, right? Or rather, don't think about it, feel it, right? When I say you are wrong, you're fucking wrong. How more fucking wrong can you be? It's an invitation for you to feel bad about yourself. And so in order to not be wrong, we must learn to feel not so bad about ourselves. Right? Or rather to release a resistance towards having to feel good, right? you know, you know, like, don't feel bad. You know, don't feel bad because of language, because of judgments and stuff like that. You're never wrong. But at the same time, this is the catch. You know, there's always this one little catch, like in all of these videos I've done, like about like, you know, unconsciousness, language, allowing, you know. There's always that last egoic kind of like a loophole that you need to burst out of before you truly understand the weight of what I'm saying, which is, you're never wrong. But if you are wrong, it's not wrong. Yes. You know, don't feel bad. But if you feel bad, it's not wrong. Remember, you are never wrong. You're never wrong. I love you. So cool. That was my entry. I hope it was insightful. I hope it was helpful as always. Yeah, I feel good. Yep, and I'm going away for 2 weeks now, so yeah, look forward to more videos when I come back. Cool. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will catch you in the next entry. Peace out, guys and sisters. Bye.